It started as a serene afternoon along Colombia's northern coast. Golden sunlight bathed the beaches of Santa Marta, the air heavy with the scent of salt and the echo of laughter. Fishermen reeled in their last catches of the day, while tourists savored icy drinks by the boardwalk, gazing at a shimmering horizon beneath a tranquil blue sky. It was paradise, peaceful, radiant, untouched. But then the sea turned restless. Waves churned with growing fury. A low, ominous hum carried on the shifting wind, a harbinger of something catastrophic. Towering clouds surged from the east, swallowing the sun in a shroud of darkness. In mere moments, paradise vanished. Rain lashed the streets with unrelenting force. Thunder roared like artillery, and from the mountains above Santa Marta, a deluge of muddy torrents roared through the city, dragging cars, trees, and entire homes into the sea's hungry grasp. People fled for cover, but some were too late. Power lines sparked, roofs caved in, and a vibrant Caribbean city that thrived just hours before now drowned under a merciless storm no one saw coming. Its name was Melissa. Born in the warm Caribbean waters, slow but lethal, Hurricane Melissa carved a scar not just across Colombia's coast, but into its people, its economy, and its future. This is the tale of how one storm transformed a nation's strength into its ultimate trial. 3 days before the floods ravaged Colombia's coast, far out in the Caribbean Sea, a quiet menace began to form. At first, it was just a faint swirl of clouds, small, unremarkable, overlooked. But beneath, the ocean pulsed with raw energy. Sea surface temperatures soared near 85 degrees, far hotter than a typical October. That heat fueled the atmosphere like gasoline on a fire, birthing a tropical depression within hours. At the National Hurricane Center, meteorologists tracked the system's rapid escalation. Winds surged past 50 mph. Barometric pressure plummeted to 29.53 inches, and satellite imagery revealed the chilling spiral of a strengthening storm. They named it Melissa. It crept west-northwest at a mere 8 mph, stalking the South American coast like a predator biding its time. That sluggish pace made it deadly. Unlike swift storms that strike and vanish, Melissa loomed, drawing endless moisture from the sea, swelling with every hour. Each degree of ocean warmth fed its ferocity. For Colombians, the clock was ticking down to disaster. In coastal cities like La Guajira, Magdalena, and Cartagena, officials sounded urgent warnings. Emergency plans sprang into action, shelters opened, and the Navy dispatched rescue boats to vulnerable lowlands. But Melissa's slow crawl, neither striking nor retreating, was the true threat. While the world fixated on fiercer hurricanes tearing through the Atlantic, Melissa advanced, silent, deliberate, relentless, amassing the power to turn a coastline into a catastrophe. By the evening of October 21, 2025, Hurricane Melissa's outer band struck Colombia's coast. The air grew thick, suffocating like a storm-charged fog. Then, without mercy, the heavens unleashed a torrent. Rain fell in blinding sheets, erasing the horizon, hammering rooftops, and transforming streets into raging rivers in minutes. Santa Marta's drainage system, built for sunny days, buckled under the deluge. Gutters overflowed, manholes burst, and muddy water surged through homes, ankle-deep, then knee-deep, then chest-high. Cars floated like debris between buildings, swept by currents too fierce to resist. Power failed across entire districts, plunging the city into darkness, broken only by lightning flashes and the ghostly glow of emergency lights on flood waters. Firefighters and soldiers battled through the chaos, navigating inflatable boats down submerged streets to rescue families stranded on rooftops. Desperate cries echoed from windows as walls crumbled and furniture drifted by. Every few moments, the sickening crash of collapsing buildings cut through the storm's roar, homes surrendering to the flood's weight. In Cartagena, towering waves battered the historic district's ancient stone walls, flooding hotels and inundating narrow colonial streets. In La Guajira, landslides devoured roads, isolating entire communities from rescue. Ports were shut down, fishermen grounded, their boats smashed against rocky shores like driftwood. When the clouds finally parted, Santa Marta was unrecognizable. A drowned city, silent, scarred, a fresh wound in the Caribbean's ongoing struggle with a changing climate. As the storm raged, Colombians did what they've always done in the face of calamity. They fought to survive, together. When rescue teams couldn't reach every corner, neighbors became heroes, forming human chains to pull children and the elderly from rising waters. Families shared what little remained: a candle, a dry blanket, a scrap of bread. Amid the chaos of sirens and thunder, voices rose, calling out to one another, defying fear's grip. Even as floods swallowed neighborhoods, a different force emerged: unity. Strangers offered rides, shared meals, opened their doors to the displaced. Radio stations broadcast tirelessly, relaying names of the missing and locations of safe havens. Doctors, nurses, and volunteers worked without rest, weaving a fragile lifeline across the battered coast. For 3 relentless days, the rain refused to relent, but so did the people. As Melissa finally drifted north, the wreckage revealed not just devastation, but resilience, proof of a nation that, even underwater, refused to break. When the skies cleared, scientists unraveled the storm's terrifying truth. Melissa wasn't just a tropical storm. It was a new breed of threat, born from a warming, wetter, more volatile planet. Researchers from the University of Cartagena and the National Meteorological Institute pinpointed Melissa's power to one factor: heat. The Caribbean Sea's surface was nearly 2 degrees above normal, enough to supercharge the storm's engine. Warm water is a hurricane's fuel, feeding it boundless energy. But Melissa's destruction wasn't just about strength. It was her pace. Crawling at 8 mph, she lingered over coastal zones for days, unloading rain the land couldn't absorb. Unlike fast-moving storms that hit and run, Melissa stalled, spinning, soaking, drowning entire towns. Meteorologists call it a stalling event, a growing trend as climate patterns shift and upper-level winds weaken. The slow crawl, the torrential rain, the catastrophic flooding, all hallmarks of a climate in flux. For Colombia, it was a brutal test of infrastructure and readiness. For scientists, it was stark evidence that the climate crisis is no longer a distant threat. It's here, hammering coastlines worldwide. When the rain finally ceased, a haunting silence settled over Colombia's Caribbean coast, the kind that follows chaos. Santa Marta's streets were a graveyard of debris: shattered glass, driftwood, furniture, twisted car frames. The air reeked of mud and salt water as residents emerged to confront the ruins of their lives. For many, there was nothing left. Over 3,200 homes were obliterated, and tens of thousands were without power or clean water. In Cartagena, centuries-old colonial buildings, icons of Colombia's heritage, bore the scars of salt water and erosion. Historians called it the worst cultural loss in decades. The human toll was heart-wrenching. It's about adapting before the next disaster strikes. Students studied climate science in schools named after the storm. Communities once divided united in a shared truth. This could happen again, anywhere, to anyone. Melissa faded, but her message endures. In an era of rising seas and shifting skies, every nation faces the same urgent question: are we ready for what's next? Subscribe for more stories of nature's power and human courage. And now, we want your voice. Are storms like Melissa unstoppable forces of nature, or the consequence of a planet pushed too far? How many more once-in-a-century disasters will it take for the world to act? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Awareness starts with conversation, and conversation is where change begins.